condolences to the Vatican, to the Catholic Church, and to the Catholics around the world on the passing of His Holiness Pope Francis. Pope Francis was not an ordinary leader. He rejected the distant and lavish traditions of his office and instead walked humbly among the poor and the oppressed. He was a pope who embraced the spirit of service, choosing a simpler life over luxury. Pope Francis traveled to Africa, visiting the war-torn countries of Sudan and the DRC as well as the Central African Republic, where he opened the holy door, bringing hope to the forgotten and the displaced. He spoke openly against poverty, inequality, colonialism, and the exploitation of Africa's people and resources. In one of his final acts of courage, Pope Francis raised his voice against the genocide unfolding in Gaza. He called for peace, condemned the slaughter of innocent civilians, and reminded the world that the lives of Palestinians are as sacred as any other. As we remember his life, let us never forget the people of Palestine and their resistance against the apartheid Israel regime. Our freedom is incomplete without the freedom of the people of Palestine, and as South Africa, we must never retreat from our solidarity with Palestine, even in the face of intimidation by the USA. May the legacy of the Pope inspire us to build a more just, humane, and compassionate world. The Economic Freedom Fighters welcomes the decision of the Western Cape High Court handed down on the 27th April 2025, setting aside the illegally adopted 2025 fiscal framework and revenue proposals and suspending the implementation of the VAT increase from 15% to 15.5%. This decisive court order vindicates the principled stance the EFF has consistently taken to defend the Constitution, the rule of law, and the interests of the poor and working class against political expediency and executive overreach. This victory restores Parliament's constitutional powers as the legislative authority over the public finances, reaffirms the supremacy of the law, and crucially protects millions of South Africans, especially the poor and working class, from being further burdened by reckless and unjust VAT increase amidst an economic crisis. At a time when South Africans are already suffering under the unbearable burden of high cost of living, skyrocketing food prices, unaffordable electricity tariffs, and record petrol prices, the suspension of VAT increase is a necessary intervention against further economic suffocation. The EFF has long warned that the current Minister of Finance and the leadership of the National Treasury are incompetent, untrustworthy, and incapable of tabling a credible, believable, and lawful budget. From the onset, it was clear that they were detached from the economic realities faced by ordinary South Africans. The crisis began with the minister's catastrophic attempt to table the original 2025 budget on 19 February 2025. The budget collapsed under the weight of public and political rejection of the proposal to increase VAT by 2 percentage points and the refusal to implement the inflationary adjustment of income tax brackets. The EFF was among the first political parties to declare that the Minister of Finance failed to appreciate the depth of South Africa's economic crisis, even as he reluctantly considered that austerity budgeting had to end and rejected the first budget unconditionally. Unwilling to listen and arrogant, the minister returned to Parliament on 12 March 2025 with so-called revised budget. Yet the core proposal remained the same, a VAT increase, albeit now by 0.5% for the 2025-26 financial year. The EFF immediately rejected this revised budget, rightly identifying it as a shallow political compromise aimed at appeasing financial markets not a genuine response to economic stagnation and mass unemployment. We maintain that the fiscal adjustment must not occur on the backs of the poor and the working class. We were clear. The budget tabled by the minister remains a proposal until Parliament adopts a lawful fiscal framework, division of revenue, appropriation bill, and associated revenue bills. Parliament has constitutional powers to amend and reject fiscal proposals. We were ready to submit comprehensive, concrete alternatives in the Standing Committee on Finance and Appropriations, which we did in the Standing Committee on Finance, to the ANC and to the Minister of Finance. Our proposals were aimed at building a developmental state capable of creating jobs and growing the economy without burdening the poor and working class through regressive taxes. We propose the following key measures. 1. Reject the VAT increase and protect poor and working class households. 2. Adjust personal income tax brackets by 4.5% to prevent bracket creep and protect wage earners. Increase corporate income tax from 27% to 28.5% in 2025-2026 and to 30.5% in 2026-2027, targeting highly profitable corporations. Introduce a wealth tax on underutilized and luxury land holdings to raise at least 7.5 billion annually. Implement an apartheid wealth tax on pre-1994 trust to generate a once-off revenue of 30 billion to 50 billion. Introduce an annual levy on inherited wealth exceeding 10 million, estimated to raise 10 to 20 billion annually. Allocated an additional 4 billion in 2025-2026 to strengthen SARS capacity to combat illicit financial flows and recover unpaid taxes. Launch a 512 billion fiscal stimulus program over 3 years to fund infrastructure, frontline employment, reindustrialization, and rural development. Amend the division of revenue bill to increase local government funding without reducing essential allocations for health, education, and basic services in provinces. These proposals reflect a credible, progressive, and transformative approach to fiscal policy, unlike the National Treasury's austerity-driven framework that sought to balance the budget on the backs of the poor and working class. However, because the ANC no longer enjoys a majority in Parliament and its committees, it chose to undermine democracy and the law by steamrolling the 2025 fiscal framework through deceitful tactics on 1st April 2025. They colluded with the Inkatha Freedom Party, Action SA, BOSA, Rise Mzansi, the Patriotic Alliance, the Pan-Africanist Congress of Azania, the Good Party, the National Coloured Party, and Al-Jamaa to adopt the fiscal framework illegally, ignoring the clear requirements of Section 8, Subsection 4 of the Money Bills Amendment Procedure and Related Matters Act of 2009. Without a valid fiscal framework, no budget process could lawfully proceed. Immediately after the unlawful meeting, on the very same day, the EFF sent a letter to the Speaker of the National Assembly raising an urgent legal objection and demanding the withdrawal of the Standing Committee's report. The next day, 2nd April 2025, during the National Assembly sitting, we reiterated on the floor that the fiscal framework was adopted in an unprocedural and illegal manner. We made it clear that the proceeding will expose Parliament to constitutional invalidity, because we believe that had the process been followed, the ANC will not have had enough support to pass the budget. Despite these interventions, the Speaker herself, driven by political expediency, refused to act. Instead, she attempted to create an illegal workaround, sending a letter to the Minister of Finance on 21st April 2025, suggesting that the fiscal framework was adopted with a condition that the minister should seek alternative revenue sources. This was an irrational and legally meaningless political maneuver. The law provides for no such conditional adoption of fiscal framework. The Speaker disgraced the office she occupied and compromised the independence of Parliament. Meanwhile, political parties that naively believed they could support the fiscal framework with conditions while hoping for side settlements to correct their bundle exposed their desperation, ignorance of the budget process, and reckless hunger for positions. Their confusion has been made worse by ignorant propaganda such as the absurd nonsense published by some media houses peddling an illusion that Parliament could separate revenue proposal from the fiscal framework and the National Treasury must remain independent to implement irrational fiscal policy without a law. It is shameful that individuals who do not understand even the basic principle of budgeting processes are entrusted with chairing the key parliamentary committees such as Scope and Standing Committee of Finance. Such political illiteracy threatens the constitutional order and brings Parliament into disrepute. Faced with this institutional betrayal, the EFF had no choice but to intervene through the courts. On 26 April 2025, we filed supplementary court papers in the Western Cape High Court. On 27 April 2025, the court delivered a landmark ruling. 1. Setting aside the illegally adopted fiscal framework and revenue proposals. 2. Suspending the VAT increase scheduled for 1st May 2025. 3. Restoring constitutional order to Parliament's budgeting process. This ruling is not just a victory for the EFF, it is a victory for the people of South Africa. It is a victory for the rule of law. It is a victory for the poor and working class who would have suffered greatly under the VAT increase. It is important to emphasize the court judgment does not validate the side shows and political chances that occurred outside Parliament by disparate parties seeking relevance. It is the EFF strategic, legal and parliamentary intervention that achieved this outcome and stopped the VAT increase. In light of this decisive judgment, the economic freedom fighters call for the immediate resignation of Finance Minister Ino Godongwana and the National Treasury Director General Duncan Peterson. These individuals have proven themselves incapable of formulating a lawful, credible and developmental budget. They have lost the confidence of the people of South Africa, and the business community should not trust them. It is the business community that has spent billions on changing their VAT system for nothing and should pursue any means necessary to hold the government accountable. South Africa now faces an urgent task. A credible third budget for the 2026 financial year must be tabled by no later than July 2025. The current government must either deliver a lawful budget within this time frame or accept that its failure to do so will trigger a constitutional crisis leading to its collapse and fresh elections. The EFF stands ready to engage meaningfully and table substantive proposals to ensure the new budget focuses on economic recovery, industrialization, mass employment, and the restoration of public service. We will reject any attempts to impose budget cuts, austerity, or regressive taxation on the people of South Africa. We emphasize, while the VAT increase was a particular trigger, the entire 2025 budget, as formulated by the Minister of Finance, is fundamentally flawed. The National Treasury's neoliberal dogma, obsession with austerity, and blind loyalty to the white capitalist establishment have no place in South Africa's current economic realities. The EFF has consistently led from the front in Parliament and society. In the 7th Parliament, we recommended ourselves to be effective and constructive opposition. This is evident in our back-to-school campaign by all elected public representatives, our superior contribution during the State of the Nation Address debate, our exposition of corruption during the National Youth Development Agency interviews, our introduction of the Student Debt Cancellation Bill, our leadership in exposing illegal parliamentary process, and now our victory in resetting the 2025 budget process at a defining moment for South Africa. This makes us, from yesterday, the official opposition party in South Africa. The EFF will continue to act with strategic clarity, revolutionary discipline, and unwavering commitment to the poor and working class to defend, rebuild, and advance the struggle for economic freedom. We call on all political parties, civil society organizations, trade unions, and academic institutions to work with us in the next phase to rebuild the national budget in a way that serves all South Africans, not just the rich. Victory belongs to those who defend the Constitution, democracy, and the people, and not to those who sell them out for political survival. I thank you.
Thank you very much to the Commander-in-Chief and President of the Official Opposition. We will now take questions from members of the media. You will be number 1, you'll be number 2, you'll be number 3, you'll be number 4. And let's proceed quickly. Samgel.
Okay. The question to the official opposition, the EFF. I wonder what Floyd has to say about that. Mr. Malema and your colleagues. Just on the issue of the budget now going forward, what are going to be the main thrust of the negotiations with political parties in Parliament, in the main with the ANC? I heard your speech over the weekend saying that you are willing to engage, but you won't engage in an association with the Democratic Alliance and also the Freedom Front Plus. What will be the main thrust of your negotiations going forward? Then secondly, on the issues pertaining to the actual fiscal framework of the budget in itself, what are some of your main procedure points that you would like to be followed, noting that this particular judgment noted the discrepancies that were there in the portfolio committee that Mr. Asnawo was part of? What are some of those points that Parliament must seek to address that will not bring the country back to a phase where the entire parliamentary proceedings or committee proceedings are then taken to court once again? Then lastly, on the issues pertaining to the so-called Black Caucus within Parliament, where does this particular judgment now put the EFF's relationship with some of the parties like the NCC that were nowhere to be found during the voting of this fiscal framework in Parliament? Would you still be engaging some of these parties, or are you inadvertently saying you are now pulling away from this particular caucus, standing alone, and having a supply and demand to both those in government and those within the opposition? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Number 2.
Good morning, Alpha Ramushwana here from Eyewitness News. I mean, I'm partially covered, so I'm going to cover a lot of those questions. I also want to ask about the court ruling. The ANC last week says that the DA and the EFF's application in court has nothing to do with the finance minister's reversal of the value-added tax increase. What do you make of this statement? And I'd also like some reaction on Floyd Chiwambo's visit to Malawi, where he went to Shepherd Bushiri's church. Thank you.
Number 3.
Good afternoon, leadership. Zineko Mhlaba from Newsroom Africa. The entire fiscal framework and VAT debate is really exposing the analysis and understanding legal processes of passing budgets that we see here. My question now then talks to the issues of how do you find balance between respecting the democratic process, in this case, respecting the views of the majority, which the ANC managed to garner, but also having an opposition that is able to take on that majority by, as the EFF has done, by taking legal steps to really enforce the legalities or the legal processes which Parliament must follow in deciding on such important matters. So what lesson can we learn from this? And of course, how does this whole debate, as we have seen it unfolding, really put citizens of this country in a very, very vulnerable position? Do you believe that had the EFF and the DA not taken this issue legally, would be able to get consensus within parliamentary structures to fix the problem that the court has finally found? But also going forward now, as Samkelo pointed out, the role of the opposition and the importance of the importance of uniting opposition parties within Parliament. Do you think that is still possible, or it is time for each party now to stand alone and also go as far as using legal processes, to challenge whatever they are not happy with? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Number 4, and hopefully we'll keep it brief and straight to questions.
Our data is slow. Good afternoon. Shannon Merrick from Kasi Broadcasting Africa. I want to focus on local issues. On 1st of April, the press statement talks of something that happens in Parliament or whatever. People voted and so on. 1st April is April Fool's Day. But on 27 April, the court reversed what happened on 1st April 2025. How does the EFF feel about that victory, that on 27 February 2025, the court reversed a very important judgment that's in the favor of poor people, especially black people? That's 1. 2, the EFF put some strikers in, for the lack of a better word, strikers in Parliament. It was Ompile, it was Siano, the spokesperson, and this other young doctor that we never saw before to fight this bill. And in the media, they actually brought more clarity to us in the media, and I think to the DA and others as well. Now you claim you are the official opposition. Do you think these young people will be able to take the EFF forward beyond where it is now? Number 3, the elephant in the room. The people out there are worried. Are people going to get SASSA payment next week? Are the poor black child going to get their feeding scheme next week? Are the Gogos going to get the grant? And the most important thing about the disability grant, pension, old age grant and child grant, will they get the increase of the grant? Because remember, the increase now is part of this budget that, give or take, I'm not the doctor that gave the analysis of the budget, but now there's no budget. Thank you.
All right, thank you, President.
Thank you very much. You and the TG must be ready to also answer questions because you are members of the committee. You can provide more clarity on the processes that unfolded. There's no negotiations going forward with anyone. We are going to a committee, and then the law must be followed to the letter. So there's no one who's going to be seeking any favor from anyone. We outlined what we want in the budget, and we've even put that down, sent to the ANC, sent to the minister, and we've even published those things that we are talking about. So you will know that once we agree on such things, it means that the ANC, if it wants to win us over, it has to reach out and agree on some of those issues. Issues like the increase of corporate tax, the apartheid tax, and those underutilized land tax, and so many. So these are not necessarily about everything else except that this is where we can generate revenue. instead of going to target the poor, let's go to the people who matter the most, who make money and collect more taxes from them. And it has, the parliament process is such that this matter he must prepare a new budget and then go to the finance committee, and then there must be public consultations, I think for 30 days, and then come back to through the committee to come and present the budget. So in all of those days, there will not be budget. So which means in the absence of the newly adopted budget, you use the previous budget. So that's where we find ourselves. The Progressive Caucus is there. I mean, even when we went to, what do you call it, to vote for budget, we had a meeting of the Progressive Caucus. We took a position with the NCC. The NCC was there. You saw that meeting we had with ANC by the toilet there in Parliament. There is a picture, they were standing next to the toilet. The ANC was asking us to abstain so that they can get the numbers, because they were not sure about the numbers. They were asking us to abstain. And they went to do that to NCC. They said they must abstain. So the NCC, having known that they participated in the Progressive Caucus and the position was taken there, they were not prepared to abstain being physically there. So they pretended like they are going outside for something and then they disappeared, which is a very unacceptable practices. I mean, we must not relate as if what is on the street. You can just, mislead people and disappear. But the people of South Africa will judge them for who they are. The ANC said the court papers have nothing to do with tax. The court spoke to tax. So the ANC is exposed. And I don't understand why would Mbalula say the ANC has always opposed VAT and the media doesn't take him head on that. Who presented the VAT? Because the VAT didn't present itself there in Parliament. It was the ANC finance minister who presented the VAT and the budget. And then the ANC, after securing that narrow victory, they celebrated. They were singing. And then they were joined by that prisoner, the ex-convict. He was singing the loudest from the front there, like a child excited. So when you come and say you didn't support VAT, and VAT gets adopted, and then you dance, you ululate, you celebrate, and the people of South Africa still trust such people as leaders of society. People who lie openly in public, lie, that we never supported. There's nothing wrong with a principle that said, well, we thought this was going to be the most effective way to collect more taxes, but after many persuasions, the ANC withdraws its proposal. Because we went to have a meeting with the ANC. They were telling us that we must support 0.5%. We refused. We said we're not going to support any VAT increase, and then we're not going to participate in anything that has got to do with the DA and the Freedom Front Plus. So it's a lie. It's a complete lie. I don't think the question about people attending churches and all of that, it's really our concern, because you're going to ask us in future, you saw so-and-so attending a club or shebeen or something. We have nothing to do with such things. People do what they want to do, and they don't belong to our organizations, so we have nothing to do with that. Majority versus the court decision. You can't use the majority to pass irrational decisions. So every decision in South Africa, even if it's taken by the majority, it has to pass a rational test. That's why we took that decision of the majority to the court. The courts are there because the Constitution of the Republic of South Africa is the final decision. It's not politicians who take final decision. Politicians can debate, take a decision and all of that. But if it doesn't meet the constitutional requirements, the courts are going to come in. Because we don't have parliamentary supremacy in South Africa. We've got a constitutional supremacy. And therefore that the majority have taken a decision, no one else must come in. You are reducing our constitution to parliamentary supremacy. So that issue gets clarified by that the whatever majority you can have, it must meet the rational test. I mean, it's not for the first time. I mean, the majority approved Nkandla, and we took it to court. And the court said, yeah, no, this is wrong. Reverse the whole thing. So the arrogance of the ANC, and sometimes I don't think it's an arrogance of the ANC. I think sometimes it's the illiteracy of the leadership of the ANC when it comes to parliament matters. Because remember, these people used to have majority. Now, they no longer have majority. Now they get exposed. Because in the past, when you debate, they say, no, let's vote. Let's vote. So they can no longer do that. Now they have to make serious, well-informed inputs. And those inputs have to meet the rational test. And that's where they get exposed. They are going to be exposed for a very long time. You can trust us with that. We don't have any agreements with any party. We are an independent organization. We contested elections in our own right, and we got elected in our own right. So even when we are in a progressive caucus, well, it doesn't take away the independence of the EFF. The same way didn't take away the independence of the NCC. It came to a meeting, it agreed, and it eventually used its own independence to determine where they finally stand on these matters. So we were under no illusion of being in some form of agreement with any political party. We contested elections on our own, and we got 91%. They just forgot to put one on the other side. Because only a 91% party can do what we're doing. I mean, this is the work that gets to be done by people with the serious numbers and all of that. But sometimes quantity does not translate to quality, because we've got people there who are saying they are official opposition with numbers, but in terms of substance, they are extremely, extremely challenging. I mean, I saw them saying they're going to pass a motion of no confidence in Parliament on the Minister of Finance. I mean, what is that? What procedure is that one now? Because ministers are appointed by the President. They are not appointed by Parliament. We can make a call like we're doing, but the final decision rests with the President of the Republic of South Africa. Those are the types of stupid things we are not going to agree to. And you are going to say, no, the Progressive Caucus is not working together. Working together, agreeing on stupidity. We can't allow that. We are not going to be part of such things. We only agree and align ourselves on superior logic. Our going to court, we didn't join the DA. You know how the court matters work. If you come to court and there's someone already in court on the same matter, you're going to be forced to join that matter. We wrote a letter to the Speaker, midnight. They woke up in the morning to see our letter. They wrote a letter. They were arguing different points altogether, even in court. They were arguing completely different points. This court decision, if you go and look at it, it is in the prayers, raw as it is, it's in the prayers of the EFF. You must just go and read the prayers of the EFF in the court papers and then look at this judgment. It's exactly what the EFF asked the court to do. Then you go to the DA, you look at the prayers of the DA, and you look at this agreement. You realize that the DA was there for a different reason. And someone was saying, yeah, but you are voting with the DA. I said, no, we're not voting with the DA. We're voting for EFF position. And we're doing it for different reasons. We never voted for the same position with the DA because we are sharing the same reasons. We don't share the same reasons with the DA. 27 April was a very important day in the history of South Africa in 1994. And today it becomes again an important day, a turning point in the politics of South Africa, and especially parliamentary politics. So to overturn a decision of April Fools on the 27th of April was a victory to the Constitution of the Republic of South Africa. That fools will never undermine the Constitution of the Republic of South Africa for as long as the EFF is there. The EFF has always been led by young people, and we've got full confidence in them, and that's why we entrust them with responsibilities and huge responsibilities, and they don't disappoint. They always come back with victory. Well, the SASSA is going to be there. We're using the old budget, as we said, but there won't be an increase because the increase was proposed in the current budget, which is now set aside. So which means the 20 rand he promised to increase that grant they give to the unemployed, social relief. It was giving them 350, said it's going to put 20 rand to 370. It won't happen. Because the budget has not been approved. We expect the people to get their money, especially the poor of the poorest. The only difference is that there will not be an increase. And all of that must be blamed on the ANC and the DA. The GNU has completely failed the people of South Africa, and the sooner we realize that, the better. We must be ashamed that we have a country without a budget. Everybody must be ashamed that there is no budget in South Africa today as we speak. And what is worse is that those people are going to pay the cost of what could have been avoided had they listened to the superior logic. The TG, when she closed her debate, she told them, we'll meet in court. And they thought we were playing. I don't know why these guys are not replaying that thing there in the EFF social media where she tells them, we'll meet in court. You replay that thing and you put that court judgment. This is what we said and this is what we came up with to demonstrate that we mean everything we said. We said to you, South Africa, we are not going to be a disruptive opposition. We are going to be a constructive opposition. We are going to hold the executive accountable, and we are doing exactly that. You can be in denial in the media because you had written us off. You said, no, the EFF is gone. The think tanks of the EFF are gone. What's going to happen to the EFF? When the think tanks of the EFF were here, have you ever seen such a superior logic being displayed? Okay, because they are tanks, why are they not tankering where they are? Why? Because they were superior, they were what? Thinking tanks. Let them go and think tank there, where they are. Where they are, there is nothing. A meeting, a finance committee meeting can sit for 7 hours without those people saying anything. Nothing. So we have demonstrated to you physically that they did not make the EFF. They didn't make the EFF. So we have indicated the thinking tanks are now showing on the other side that they have never been thinking tanks. No, there were wheelbarrows that got pushed around by us. Thanks. Yeah.
Thank you, President. Yeah, we're opening the round of questions now. So we'll take you first, Heidi. We'll do the process as we've been doing it. You'll be number 2, and it's the last round, by the way. You'll be number 3, gone. Number 1.
Mr. Malema, you basically answered my question, but if you could just elaborate a little on it. The MK released a statement saying they're going to have a motion, they want a motion of no confidence against the finance minister, and we all know that that's not really possible. But if it ever happens, would you be in support of the MK? Would you support that decision? And you're calling for the finance minister to resign, which is probably not going to happen. But as the EFF, is there any other way that you would call for his resignation or any action taken for him to resign? And then just thirdly, you speak about the fact that the previous budget is still in effect because the new budget hasn't been implemented, and there's going to be an entirely new fiscal framework. Now, debt to GDP ratio is probably going to be pushed over to 77% because we just don't have that revenue shortfall that we would have gotten from the VAT. How would you propose we deal with this? And what if the finance minister comes back and says, I have to cut social security? What will you as the EFF do about that? Thank you.
Number 2.
Samkela again. I have to give credit where it's due. You've done exceptionally well as the EFF on this particular point of the VAT. You've been an exceptional opposition in Parliament. Mr. Malema, Treasury for the longest of time has been criticized as reactionary, as pushing its own policies. You remember during a time when the late Tito Mboweni was still the Minister of Finance, there was an economic document that was circulated by Treasury, which the then majority party in the country, the ANC, had no knowledge of, which spoke about the economic trajectory and the financial trajectory of the country, that was essentially drafted by officials within Treasury. What are some of the political measures that can be taken to infuse the political economic trajectory that Parliament and South African political parties want Treasury to implement? Because there seems to be a resistance by that particular Department of Treasury that is seemingly operating from a mandate Lord knows comes from where. Then lastly, the acting president, Gwede Mantashe, yesterday spoke about where the ANC should move, saying that if it were to move closer to the EFF or to the MK, it would be like moving from the devil to a fire. Where does that put some of the discussions that may now take place over the proposals that you have proposed to the ANC on capacitating SARS in order to get that extra 800 billion rands of taxes into the fiscus? Does that halt those particular prospects of the two parties voting together on an issue-to-issue within Parliament? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Number 3.
Good afternoon, Shannon Merrick, Broadcasting Africa. Firstly, I want to thank the EFF in Parliament for educating us as the media as well about finance and all those things. We didn't know these things. At least now we're more educated. But now we have a situation where a vote of confidence might be taking place against the President, Cyril Ramaphosa, because the DA is saying unofficially, but reading between the lines, you remove us from the GNU, we remove your President. In the event that that happens in the next 90 days, is the EFF ready for elections? Or is the EFF ready to go into a coalition and take positions in the GNU? It's either the ANC push the DA out or the DA leaves on its own. But ultimately, the fall guy is not the finance minister. It's the president if the GNU collapses. Thank you.
President.
Sure. We will not support the MK motion because we don't think, like I said, doesn't make sense. They are well entitled to make those positions about this or that, but where they are right, we'll support them. But we don't think that is the way to go. If they meant business, they should put motion of no confidence against the president. Then there we know we've got the role to play. And to actually put this matter to rest, any motion of no confidence put against the ANC president will support it. Because he has put us into this mess. He's the man responsible for every mess we are experiencing today. And therefore, we are not yet there as the EFF to a point where we think we can put a motion of no confidence, because we're still working the ground. You don't want to do some not well canvassed work in Parliament. You have to go around, seek consensus and all of that. Their fight with the DA is also strategic. Treasury is reactionary, and Treasury is still captured by apartheid apologists and apartheid beneficiaries. You know, there's something you don't know, that when Zuma removed Pravin Gordhan, the Treasury senior staff came together and said, let's resign and leave with the pin. Those people have got a pin to PESAL. The DG of Treasury then didn't have a pin of PESAL. So without PESAL, you can't pay salaries of the workers. That's when they wanted to collapse the state. That's how prepared they were to collapse the state in favor of an individual, which is treasonous. I mean, if you start disappearing with the pin that pays salaries, and then those things that pay the tenders and this and that, service providers. And they are, I forgot the name, and there used to be an African woman. There is the one who's got a PESAL pin. Her alone has got that access to the thing. So she can disappear. We're gone, we're finished. For sure it is in her will. Or if she dies, the pin must be given to so and so. So I think one of the things we need to do is to take the budgeting process away from Treasury, maybe into presidency or any form of those things, where we say, this is what we want, this is what we're budgeting for, and all of that. And then they must pay. Because if you take the whole program of action of the EFF and say, this is our program, this is how much we're going to spend on this program and all of that, you take all of that responsibility, you give it to a TG, you won't get a cent out of it. So you're going to look at that thing and say, there's no money. No, there's no money. So the people who are tasked to pay are very difficult people to pay. They don't just pay. So those things, I think they need to be run separately, so that once we're done, we give them, there must be a political mandate that says, here are the things that you must finance. And then no one can question us about that, because we've got a lawful mandate. If the law doesn't allow us, we'll amend the law to make sure that it meets this requirement, because this country is being held back by Treasury. Yeah, it's being held back. And everybody is very scared of that Treasury. Very scared of that Treasury. So we can't have that to a point where the ANC admit that they have no control over Treasury for the past 31 years. Because we're told this thing of budgeting was done differently before 1994. It started being operated like this after 1994. Why? They knew that they must capture the Treasury. Even if these ones capture the political power, they must still go through us. So we need to liberate and transform the Treasury. You know, where they must not just speak loosely. You know, things are not working. Eh? You don't just speak like you have power, from devil to fire, whatever. They are going to pass a motion of no confidence there in Parliament. What is Gwede going to do? He's going to go to fire. That fire will not be fire because you now want it to support you in defense of the president. It will be water now. It will be what? Drinkable water. He must not just speak. He doesn't have numbers. There's going to be a motion of no confidence in Parliament against the president. And I can tell you, they are going to come to us running the same way they came to us running on the budget process. They always shout and scream and insult us, say all manner of things. And when it is difficult, they run to us. Just now in Ikuruleni, there was a motion of no confidence against the mayor. EFF must come now. But when things are nice, now we must look at how we remove the EFF and. So, and I want to warn you that this country will have a white president. This country will stay in Ezen as a president if the ANC is going to behave the way it's behaving. Because the motion of no confidence will come, will vote with the DA, mobilize all those who can mobilize, we vote together with the DA against the president. And then when it is time to elect a president, we abstain. And the ANC loses. We abstain. And this we told them in 2016, they never believed it. It's going to happen in South Africa now, you'll see. With this kind of attitude by the ANC, the arrogance of the ANC, even when it is being humbled, is still acting in an arrogant manner. We told them in 2016, you are going to lose metros. They thought we were playing. We went into those things. The DA nominated their people. We abstained. They finished them. When they were voting with us, the ANC, they win. But when they don't vote with us, they lose. That's where the road started. That's where the decline started. That's why the decline started. The decline started in 2016 when they lost the metros. And then the whites took the metros because of this reactionary attitudes of devil and fire. So it's going to happen. If they're not going to change their attitude, be rest assured, we're going to fold our arms where they will be needing us and they will lose. I can tell you this without any fear of contradiction. All political parties in South Africa, except the EFF, are white controlled. The same goes to MK, by the way. Yeah, they are white controlled. So, once a motion is put and the Israelis call PA, let's go this way. They call ACDP this way. They call DA this way. Holomesa this way. Bosa, Musima Imani this way. I mean, the biggest funder of Musima Imani is that woman who used to own Hilton Hotel here in Santana. I forgot the name. So, all of them, they can just be told we are all moving this way. And you can see those Mapantiti, they don't have any principle. And they don't pretend. They tell you, now we go where we're eating. If there is no eating, we are not going. So if we realize this thing, if they realize this thing is collapsing, they are going to move to the site where there is eating. So they don't even they are not pretentious about it. So the GNU has completely failed. The GNU effectively has collapsed. To just be told that, no, we're still together, GNU is still there. If you are there, why can't you pass the budget? So the inability to pass the budget, it's a confirmation that the GNU has collapsed. They are still managing each other. But there will come a point where one of them will have to take a decision. We will not work with the DA, and we don't want to work with the DA, but the ANC must continue to push us away. We will not work with the DA, we will fold our arms where they need us the most. Because the ANC with the EFF is 49%. And then you get one where they can bring those mapantito of theirs, or they can bring Action SA. It's done. You have a coalition of 3 stable parties. 3. IFP's reactionary is going to go with the DA. It's just pretending now that they act bold because they are drunk with blue lights and all of that. But we know IFP is Oppenheimer owned. You guys are in the media. You have been there for quite some time. You have attended, because you are a media, you have access to the most strategic positions and all of that. You have never seen the Oppenheimers in anybody's funeral except the funeral of Mangosuthu Buthelezi. They were never there at Mandela's funeral, the icon. They were not there at Desmond Tutu's funeral. But when the president of their party died, they had to come out because now their man is gone. They gave the IFP 10 million, now 20 million now for these elections. So you can't say the IFP is not white-owned. Even Mashaba is white-owned. The real guy there in the Action SA is that guy called the national chairperson. What is it? Blue? Michael, yes. Mike, that's the guy who's the brain, the ngondo of that thing. Malumi and doesn't know what he's doing, Even on the vet, I went to sit down with him. I said to him, hey, my guy, please do not support this budget. Do not believe what these people are saying. I worked with them. They are dishonest people. They will never deliver what they have promised you. He says, if we don't approve budget, then the markets are going to collapse and then the economy will crash. Yesterday, the court put aside the budget. Where are the collapsed markets? Where is the collapsed economy? The real person there is Michael. Yeah, so, and the PA told you straight, we are with Israel. Yeah, we are with Israel. And that's how they are being managed. So, if Israel doesn't resign, there's nothing we can do except to continue to put pressure. We have to put pressure on the president because we don't have confidence in the finance minister. And the president hopefully will see the reason why he needs to remove him. Or minister himself. If he had a decency, he should be resigning himself after all of this. We went first budget with the public money to go and pass the first budget. Public money used. When we arrived there, they said, there's no budget, go home. After utilizing the money, remember, that day gets called special for him. No money. No budget. Money used, we left. Went second time to do illegal activities. Even when you are told, this is illegal. They went to waste public money on illegal activities. We are now going for the third time. We are using public money. For third time. We are not sure if he's going to do the right thing or not. Because he has not demonstrated in the past 2 failed budgets, that he's got the capacity to do the right thing. So we hope that they will listen to the logic especially in the Committee on Finance. It's very important that we ought to put aside our political differences and then look at what is in the best interest of our country. Minister can come with a proposal, nothing stopping him. But we should have the capacity, and we're empowered by the law, by the way, to amend that proposal of the minister. Once amended, we now reach consensus in the committee, we take it to Parliament, we pass it. The ANC still wants to rule, and that's what we told them. You still want to rule as if you still have numbers. You don't have numbers. You must accept that you don't have numbers. I even gave them a very silly example, but it's a good example which we've been told and when we're growing up, that when you are HIV positive, the first start for you to live a normal life is to accept that you are HIV positive. Then you start taking your medication, and then you live a normal life. The ANC must accept so that it can take its own medication. Their refusal to accept will lead to them not living a normal life. So we've made that very clear. I'm very disappointed with SARS, I must say. And I hold this, a commissioner of SARS in high regard. I've got a huge respect for him for one reason, that he hasn't used SARS for political maneuvering and pursuing people and yes, done SARS work where he wants his money, and he doesn't go after individuals. But for him to issue a letter or a statement saying people, those who are already adjusted to 15.5%, there's nothing wrong, will after 15 days reverse it, and then but otherwise the rest of you must pay 15%. What informed that? Because the matters were still in court and they were respondent in that court case. So we don't understand what forced him, because he knew that the minister cannot reverse a decision of Parliament. So now the minister makes an announcement that he's reversing the decision of the Parliament. SARS enters. He says, no, we are now paying 15% when Parliament has passed 15.5%. And then he comes now, before we came in, the reason why we are late, SABC asked us to start at 12:20 because they were going to interview the commissioner of SARS. So we had to wait for them. Very important people. Of course, we had to listen to, we also wanted to hear what he was saying, or what he wanted to say. So when we are there, he says, if the vet vendors have already adjusted to 15.5%, and you go into a shop and they charge you 15.5%, you must immediately ask for refund there by the counter, right? So which means our people now must go with calculators when they go shopping. That's what he says. After buy, you must calculate how much must be brought back to you. Why? And how many of our people have got such knowledge? Because our people don't even look at those things. They just take a receipt and off they go. Our people are going to be ripped off. When he says they can take, those who have already adjusted, they can take 15.5%, and then in 15 days' time, they will refund it back. Who's going to benefit from the interest of that man? Because money, wherever it's lying, supposed to generate interest. So people are going to keep our money in their bank accounts, and then say for 15 days, I'm keeping this money, we'll release after 15 days, and then they give you your money, and then they keep the interest. So we can't allow that. And what kind of SARS is this one that, agitate for two separate VATs? There must be a one of 15%, and there must be a one of 15.5%. If you were not convinced that there is uncertainty in this country, just listen to what SARS is saying. Just listen to what SARS is saying. No, others can take 15.5%, others can take... SARS is supposed to say the VAT of South Africa is 15%. Anyone who's going to take more than that, it's an illegal activity. They must reverse it. They must go back to those vendors of VAT and tell them, whoever adjusted, go back to 15%. That will also be a demonstration that SARS respect the court. The court has now made a decision. Maybe they were doubting us and all of that. That's fine. The court has now made it very clear. The VAT in South Africa is 15%. Anyone who collects more than that, it's an illegal activity, must be charged with fraud. Fraud. Which law are you using to charge people 15.5%? So SARS can encourage people to engage in illegal activities. To say charge more, you will refund it after 15 days is to encourage people to break the law. The law says 15%, and we must all respect that. We thank the parliamentarians of the EFF. They must not be discouraged. They must continue to work very hard and demonstrate to the people of South Africa that they made a terrible mistake on the 29th of May. Had they given this organization a proper mandate, they will not be where they are today. And they must know another opportunity is coming next year. If they want to make further mistakes, they must ignore the EFF. We cannot listen to those who have made it their business. People still write. I mean, there were people who were saying, yo, the EFF was found wanting on this VAT issue. I'm like, are you an illiterate or what? But because we entered at a very complex level, some could not comprehend exactly as to what is the EFF saying. We're towering above their head, and they didn't have an appreciation. So the court has simplified it for them. Now they start realizing, no man, our savior is the EFF, and South Africa should know the EFF for that. The EFF is the savior of South Africa, and will continue to save them, whether they love us or not. We love them. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much to the Commander-in-Chief and President of the Official Opposition. The press conference is now concluded of the EFF.